Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Heather Frierson, and I'm your host of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have Scott Srolis, president of Salamander Designs. And he's going to be sharing all about his journey to becoming president, his best practices, teamwork, and all the challenges, and really just share a sneak peek of what it's like to be a president of a company like Salamander Designs. So if this is your first time to the show, be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss a notification every time a new show drops, just like this one. Well, Scott, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Heather, for having me.
It's
Hope
my
you do well.
pleasure. Well, we're going to have a lot of fun today, and I can't wait to hear your story. So, why don't you just set the stage for our listeners and share a little bit of background about who you are and about Salamander Designs?
Sure. So my name is Scott Srolis, and I've been actively involved in the audio video industry for my entire career. And I've been with Salamander for the past 8 years. I've joined Salamander as the vice president of sales, and recently, as of this year, have become president of the company. And what Salamander does, and what Salamander has done for the last 33 years, since 1992, is design, engineer, and manufacture furniture that integrates with technology. And we do so in the residential market for areas with media decor. So think of home theaters and entertainment spaces. And in the commercial office, we do so in the meeting rooms, which are very popular right now, especially with video conferencing becoming a standard in a typical type of a meeting space.
That's really cool. I mean, of course, I perused your website, and I just encourage everyone that's listening to go take a look. Really cool designs, very modern, very cool. And it sounds like this was not a huge leap for you from video and audio to furniture because it works together.
Mhm. Yeah, it's part of the whole experience. And it wasn't a huge leap, especially because when you look at your traditional furniture companies, they will sell they'll sell their furniture through traditional furniture outlets. So think in the home in residential, they'll sell it through a furniture store, or if it's or furniture.com. And for commercial, it'd be through a contract office furniture reseller. We've always gone to market through the AV integrator, AV reseller, which makes it a little bit different because all of our products, again, are designed to integrate with the technology as a forethought in the design process, not an afterthought.
Okay, explain that a little bit because that sounds really cool. So basically, someone goes in, a customer,
Mhm.
and chooses the TV, let's
Sure.
say, and then you design around that.
Well, yeah, yes. So it depends on, what vertical we're operating in. When it comes to residential, typically the person will buy a TV and they'll look at the width of the TV stand.
Got it.
And then they'll want to see if they're having a system design like a home theater. They'll want to see what equipment is going to go into the cabinet. And then once equipment's inside the cabinet, there are a lot of variables. How much wire is going to be in the cabinet? How do you conceal that wire in that equipment? And then how do you cool that equipment from overheating? So we offer different types of ways to cool equipment when it's inside a cabinet, so that it doesn't overheat and stop the party or stop the meeting.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense and really cool. So these are big projects a lots of times.
A lot of times they are, and we have a very wide portfolio of products. So, like on the residential side of our business, we have, audio racks, TV stands that, incorporate technology inside of them, as well as home theater, soft seating. So we do
Awesome.
the whole thing, and they can be pretty big projects, or it could be a media room that a designer is doing for an end user, or somebody's, at one of our resellers and they have it designed right there on the spot.
Wow. That's a lot of fun, actually, it sounds like. Just to take what your years of experience and probably passion, of course, you don't stay in something that long without passion, and to see it transition in such a way that comes alive for other people.
It's really cool. And I think the coolest part is we do make great products, and we make high quality products that we're very proud of.
Mhm.
And we ship those globally. We're very proud when somebody has a salamander and they tell us their story. But the best part of being the president of Salamander Designs are the people that work here.
Mhm.
So we manufacture everything that we sell right here in the States. And what's really cool is we have an 85,000 square foot solar powered facility right
Wow.
here in outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and Bloomfield, Connecticut.
Wow.
And we have a great team of people that have very high, we have our core values, and our core values are very important to us. And everybody that here is here at Salamander working here exhibits those values every day, and every time they touch one of our customers or products.
Can you share a couple of those core values with us and how
Sure,
they
sure,
walk them out?
sure. Yeah, we have integrity, we have excellence, agility, dependability, and we aspire to, try to actually hire and fire and review by those core values.
Love that. I want to dive deeper into this. As you took over as president, or became, I shouldn't say take over, became president,
Mm.
were these core values in place? And how did you either implement them or take them on as your own?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we operate the company on something called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It goes by EOS.
Mhm.
And EOS is something that, so we have a great entrepreneur named Sal Caraba, who's founded this company and is still the active CEO today, in 1992. And in 2017, we started to implement EOS. And what EOS does fundamentally is it gives you the tools needed to help scale an operation. And we started to scale and implement these tools in late 2017, and then try to put them in place. So part of that journey is figuring out not only the core values, but then figuring out the job descriptions that you need for each individual. And then is the person that is doing the job the right person for the right seat? And you do so in really trying to formulate these teams, looking at the people, of course, that you currently have in these roles, and making sure that they understand what the role is, how it's changed, and that they get it, they want it, and they have the capacity to do it. And that isn't something that happens overnight. That you have to implement, over time, and then bring people along that journey so that we have the right people doing the right jobs, that they get energy out of. Right? Because the last thing you want is somebody that is in a job they're miscast for and they don't get any energy from that job. I mean, who doesn't? They don't want to go to work every day. So we want to make sure that the people that we have are the right person, the right seat, and
Mhm.
they're getting energy from what they're doing. Because if they really, we want people, like, especially on the customer service side, they want to be customer focused and solving problems for customers and helping those customers. And then, really get some energy around what they do every day. Same thing on the production floor when we have people, craftsmen, putting things together, making sure that, the products are, up to our quality control and things like that, that they're getting the right energy through that. So once you kind of do all that and you get everyone in the right person, the right seat, and it's not a one and done thing. It takes time, and like I mentioned, and then also, as you hire new people into the organization, it's almost like they're joining a new organization. So if the worst thing you could do is rehire somebody from before because they just think it's going to be the same way it always was. Whereas things have changed a little bit, and hopefully for the better.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you implemented the EOS in 2017, that's when really things with inside the corporation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, started changing a lot and maybe I would assume even grow more.
Yeah, sure. Because our business was really growing. And that's a good point, Heather. Our business was really growing at that time, and more so in the commercial side of our business, which was relatively new. And we're proud to say now that on our commercial side of our business, where we had very, very, very low sales and very, very low brand recognition, that today our brand recognition is definitely more. And we're inside regularly in the Fortune 100s. We're regularly procured in 77 of them. And
Wow.
something that, just a short 8, 9 years ago wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So what that means is that our product lives up to the story that our salespeople tell, and our service delivers on, and our production guys deliver on the quality of what we say that our product's going to do in terms of solving problems. And therefore, people, when they see it, they want to replicate that and buy more of it because it was able to look beautiful and integrate well with the technology and enable a great meeting space in terms of the corporate side of what we do, commercial.
Yeah, I love that so much. And congratulations, by the way, on being in
Yeah.
77 of
Thank you. It's
Fortune
pretty cool.
500 or
I'm
100.
not one to brag, I don't want to have
No,
brag,
that's what this
but
show is for. It's
oh,
okay. You can say
okay.
that.
But it's because we all, it takes a village. There's a lot of salamanders. I'm only one of many, and it takes all of us to be able to do what we do every day.
How many employees do you have?
We're a private company, and I will say that we have less than 100.
Wow. And I think that says a lot to where you just said where you were, how many businesses, Fortune 100 companies you're in, and are able to do that with less than 100 people.
Mhm.
Can you speak to our guests that are listening that are just really struggling maybe with knowing they have a good product, but maybe haven't been able to implement what you just talked about, the core values and putting people in the right seat? What are some, maybe like some 1, 2, 3 steps that they can look at?
Well, it's process, process, process.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you have to have a process and you have to have a vision. You can have a product, and having a product for sale could be a hobby or it could be a business. And in order to get it to be a business, you need to first think about, your entire go-to-market strategy and then how you're going to generate demand for that product. And once you do something, you have some revenue coming in. It's figuring out what the right seats are that you need right away, if depending upon how big you happen to be, in order to fulfill your orders. Because the last thing you want to do is take an order and not be able to ship an order, right? So you need to go through that whole fulfillment process. But I think if I would say 1, 2, and 3, it would be know your customer,
Hmm.
right? Understand when you hire, get those core values done and out of the way, meaning that really not just put words on a page, but put words that mean something to you and that can mean something to the other people that join the organization. Make sure that you hang those core values everywhere, that you really, really hire, fire, and review on those core values. Because then what happens is you start to get you get everyone focused on what their job function is, and doing it the right way and proverbial rowing in the right direction. But the magic happens when the whole community comes together and, they're all, kind of in the same type of mindset, which is focused on what matters most, building a quality product, shipping on time, making sure the customer service is taken care of. It's not, you never really have one person that can do all four of those things. So you have to have the right person in that right seat to do the things that they need to do to make their job successful. And the last thing I would say is what I said before: when you hire people, make sure that they love doing what you're asking them to do, that they get energy out of it, that it doesn't drain them every day.
Yeah,
Like you're doing what you're doing right now, and you seem to have fun at it. You're
I
smiling,
do. Yeah.
engaging, you're passionate, so I'm sure it gives you a little bit of energy.
Mhm.
The same goes through whatever role somebody happens to do. If they're getting energy out of that, they're giving you their best performance, hopefully every day.
That's awesome. I'm sure this hasn't come with no challenges. Being a president of any company, much less a company of this size, has a lot of challenges. What are some challenges maybe that you can share with us that have come up that and how did you overcome them? What did you learn?
Is that's a
Yeah.
that's a good question. Well, one of the things I would say is, every time there's a challenge, whatever it happens to be, you I like, one of my favorite things about business, so what you should know is my favorite sport always has been business, right? And that is what I always wanted to do as a kid, from being a young guy and trying to figure out how to sell back in the old in 1900s how to sell concert t-shirts at middle school, and having my own little entrepreneurial startup through through my teen years. It is really simple. You're going to learn something, and the harder, sometimes the better. So let's talk about, where we are today. Simple challenge I think everyone's probably going through, and that is, how do tariffs work in their business? And I bet you didn't think I was going to say tariffs, because I could
Yeah,
talk.
but you're not the first person that's mentioned it the last couple of weeks.
Sure, I could have brought on, and I can veer if you want and talk about, machines malfunctioning, because
So let's do it.
all right. So with tariffs now, as I mentioned earlier, we're an American manufacturer. We already have a factory in America. We're working every day, but there's some realities, right? The realities are, no matter where you source your material from, it's not all sourced, even if it's all sourced domestically here in the US. They potentially are sourcing some of their parts and raw materials abroad. And then therefore you're impacted by tariffs. So you can have an American factory, you can buy raw materials, but where those raw materials originate from, the country of origin, can be all different places. So you find out really quickly that even if you feel as though you're not impacted, you financially are impacted.
Right.
And then, for us, as an example with Salamander, we have, let's say 50% of our raw materials are purchased offshore and 50% are purchased onshore.
Yep.
So of course, the 50% that are purchased offshore are going to have now these days have some type of tariff associated with it. And then what we learned going through that process is that the other 50%, some percentage of that also has some tariffs associated with it, because again, some of those raw materials are imported. So you have to kind of be incredibly, so I mentioned earlier, agile is one of our core values. As we've gone through this process of learning, our countries of origin, where we get what from, and what the actual costs net out to be, it's been an ongoing problem solving, trying to figure that out, trying to figure out how it affects our customer and our product, et cetera, et cetera. Because the last thing that we want to do is cause a big disruption for our customer. Meaning this, if you go by let's say, because we're an American manufacturer, we're in a better situation than a lot of our competitors, let's say. And because of that, our impact is generally very, very small. If we, think about it like this, if we were to import everything from Asia, and let's say China specifically, where it has the largest tariff, it would more than double our current prices. We're looking at, single digits in terms of what our actual impact is. But the thing is, it took us a while to kind of go through all of that, due diligence, to figure out what our impact was and where we buy what from. And with the percentages changing every day, it was a little bit of a, if I can say, shit show. But I think we're in a good spot now that we're able to, if needed, we're able to, work with our customers for the best possible solution that's not going to be, huge financial, for them. And for Salamander, we never would look to make any money on the tariffs. If we spend $1, we'd like to be able to,
Yeah.
get the dollar back. That's about it.
Well, I think you said something really impactful that I wrote down. You said you did your due diligence, because you could have very easily said, this is going to be terrible. We don't know how to do this, but you really sounds like you took things line by line. And I think that's important for people to hear.
Well, one of the things, just one other one quickly that I think we can all learn from was COVID. Now, when we thought of COVID, think about this, you have a manufacturing factory, first off, are we going to be a necessity or not, right? We were, so that was
I'm about to say, everybody was doing their homes. I'm sure
right.
you.
Well, we had to definitely get our customer service facing people all, logged in and on video conferencing like what we're doing now, and be able to communicate with customers. But also manufacturing, we had to set up our manufacturing facility, like I'm sure a lot of folks did, where, you had the right was 6 foot separation or whatever it was at the time, the mask, all the different rules that you had. But it was but that was just, you had to go through all that process to figure out if you can be open, what it remains to be open, what kind of hours are there going to be, who's going to be there, what do the shifts look like, how much can you make with that many people versus how many you typically would have that would be closer together and more people on a shift. There were a lot of things there. But then the other part was who's going to buy this product and where are they going to buy it if stores are closed, right? And, so we really looked closely at our assortment and to see what product that we had was really easier to ship than others, especially for residential business. Because residential business, with everyone being home, we thought it would be a high demand, and it turned out it was. So we did a lot of sales programs associated with the products for the home that could be easily ship and receive, and that people could do for, if they were setting up an entertainment area as a hobby on a weekend, or just to get through that amount of time that they were, stuck in their houses. And it really, really worked. And we had a really, really great year. So it was one of those things where, like you were saying earlier, this problem came and we were like, oh shit, what's going to happen now? And we were able to kind of go through it. And as a leadership team, think about what the best possible solution would be, implement those things. And we were had very, very, very little disruptions through that, 1.5 year period, which was pretty great.
Just from hearing that you've been there since 2017, you've had to deal with some pretty major things from COVID to tariffs.
Luckily that's true. And
Welcome to the business.
hey, at the end of the day, it's not about the problem, it's about the solution. And then figuring out how you can activate. And
Yeah.
that's really it. I mean, it's always good to have an idea, but if you're not executing or activating on that idea, um, it's just another idea.
I like that. Not about the problem, but about the solution. Where do you see long-term, 10 years or so, where do you see Salamander Designs going?
Well, I mean, we're innovators.
Mm.
And, it's, we have products, I don't see technology going anywhere. I see technology changing. When it comes to the home and the commercial office, I think that we'll continue to innovate on our platform and expand what we do based upon the technology that exists at that time. And here's one of the other really cool things about Salamander. So not only are we a different type of furniture company where we don't sell through those traditional furniture channels as we talked about, but we're also really good friends with the technology companies in both residential and commercial, meaning that an example would be there was this projector that was in the 20, let's say 16, that Sony was coming out with. And it was this big thing called was the first ultra short throw projector. So you know how the projectors needed to go far back from the screen or be hang up. This is one that you could put right up against the wall.
Okay.
So Sony was bringing this big one to market, the first of its kind, and they came to us to make a cabinet where they could recess in their projector to make it look like a complete solution. And then we brought that to market with them. Well, that happens a lot at Salamander, where these technologies under NDA will bring us what it is that they're working on, and they'll look to us to manufacture something that basically works with it to make it look better in the home or the office. And, so I don't see that slowing down anytime too soon.
Yeah.
I think we'll continue to evolve on the platform that we have and, and widen our portfolio as the technology demands, because that's really how we innovate. We innovate something that's very, very beautiful, and very, very has high utility and usefulness.
So when you say widen, maybe beyond furniture, or what do you mean by that?
I don't think beyond furniture. I think maybe it would be different categories of product.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you foresee maybe any roadblocks to even do something like that?
Roadblocks would be, it's a good question. I don't really see a lot of roadblocks because I just see the opportunity. I think that, when it comes to what we do to bring to market We do a lot. We mentioned due diligence earlier. We do a lot of due diligence, so we'll talk to end users, we'll talk to resellers, we'll bring a product that we're thinking about to a trade show, we'll get inputs there, and then of course, friends of Salamander, et cetera. And then we, typically will, go, no go based upon getting a lot of feedback and market demand. So I don't think that the only roadblock would be is if we would be us saying, oh, we're not going to bring this thing to market, but but typically you just take that thing that you're going to bring to market, and if you have some feedback on it, you modify it. So, it works. So I don't really see a lot of roadblocks. I mean, maybe, um, I mean, this particular year, I think the big roadblocks are the tariffs and the economy, but that's a short-term thing, not a long-term thing.
Yeah. Well, before we get to some fun rapid fire questions, what about you, Scott? How do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe?
I'll be sitting right here.
That's
So
awesome.
for the next 3 to 5 years, I'll definitely be sitting right here. We have my wife and I, we have 5 kids.
Oh,
And so we have a 23-year-old, and then we have a 19-year-old who just finished his freshman year at college. And then we have, get this, triplets, two boys,
oh,
two boys
wow.
and a girl that are all going to be freshmen in school come fall of 25, that graduate 29. So we have a graduate in 28, and we have 3 graduates in 29. So I think we'll be plenty busy in this role
You'll be busy.
for a while.
On the third go around, you got three.
Yeah, that's right. And all very, very healthy and happy. So it's
That's
awesome.
amazing. Congratulations. That's so cool. You've been so cool to talk to, and I love learning all the ways that you've implemented some strategies for the team. I think it's really good for just our listeners to hear how important core values is and due diligence for sure. So before we get to some fun rapid questions, any
Sure.
last things you want to share about Salamander Designs or leadership tips?
Yeah. I mean, Salamander, I didn't really want to go into a sales pitch, but check us out on the web, salamanderdesigns.com for residential, and salamandercommercial.com for commercial. You can link to both websites from the other, and we have one brand new website that's going to come out this fall. So please make sure to connect with us. If you want to connect with me over LinkedIn, you can. And let's do those rapid fire questions.
Good. All right, here we go. What would you say is the key to success for you?
That's a good question. I would say that curiosity and passion.
Hmm. Yeah, I can hear the passion in you for sure. All right, what advice would you give to maybe other business owners?
I would say that make sure you have the right team around you,
Mhm.
and then make sure that that you're always asking why. So what there's an old story, right, where because we ask why a lot at Salamander, and sometimes, especially in a business that's 33 years old, that why could be because it's how it was done before. So you ever hear the story of the granddaughter or the great granddaughter that's making a ham for Easter with her mom?
I have, but you should share it. I think it's really good.
So she has the ham, and they tie it, they put it in before they put it in the oven, they cut the sides off, and it goes in the oven. She says to her mom, why do we cut the sides off? And the mom says, well, that's part of our family tradition, that's how we do it. And then she decides to call her grandmother and ask her the same question, and her grandmother says, well, that's part of our family tradition, that's how we do it. So she calls her great grandmother, and she says, and you cut the sides off. And the great grandmother says, well, I cut the sides off because it didn't fit in the oven. I don't know why they cut the sides off. Right. So we at Salamander kind of live by that, which is, why? You got to ask, why are we doing it this way? Because potentially you could be wasting money.
Yeah.
Be a better way, more efficient, right? And who doesn't want to be more efficient? And a whole host of reasons. So I would say ask why until you get to the reason why you're doing something, and then look at those process improvements that you can make.
So good. I love that so much. All right. Book or podcast? What are you reading or listening to right now?
Oh geez. Well, I like a lot of sports. So there's some, and I'm a Philadelphia sports guy that lives in Connecticut and grew up in Philly. I listen to a lot of Philly sports
Mhm.
podcasts, but I also love a lot of the business podcasts. My favorite would be Pivot. I'm a big Pivot fan. I think that that's probably the twice a week. I think they have their podcast, and I'm always a little behind, but I try to listen to that. And then I don't know the name, but a friend of mine just sent me a new inventors podcast that I was trying out. That when I have time, because I have a little bit of a commute, so I try to listen.
How I built it. How I built
Huh?
Is it how I built it? How I read.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's a really good one. Yeah.
What podcast would you share with me?
That's actually one that I share all the time when people ask me. I say, listen to how I built this. Yeah. How I built this with Guy Raz and then leadership with Craig Rochelle. Those are the two that I always recommend. Yeah.
I'll,
And then ours,
I'll
of
look it up.
course. I mean, hello, this one. You get to hear the stories of entrepreneurs and leaders like you, so many, and they're so incredible. So it's a good learning one.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna follow, of course, and I'll look forward to listening.
All right, our last rapid fire, which I love, so I don't want to skip it because it's a fun one. If you had a little bit of magic dust and could sprinkle it anywhere in your business, where would you sprinkle it?
I would sprinkle it in, if I had magic dust, I would sprinkle it in our saw room and our finishing room.
Okay.
Um, because when you're a manufacturer, especially furniture, everything has to go through, everything has to get cut, everything has to get painted.
Mhm.
And the more machines you have, the better. The more operators you have, the better. But the magic dust would be so those machines are running 24/7, and
Yeah.
everyone has the parts they needed to make all the wonderful Salamander furniture the next day that they go with them when the production folks show up for work every day.
And maybe clean up the dust while they're at it, right?
There, you can eat off the floor here.
Okay.
Heather, I'm not kidding you. The folk, like I said, pride, everyone has pride in what they
Yeah,
do.
that's awesome.
Hiring the right person for the right seat. If you're ever in Connecticut, I'd love to give you a tour of our
That'd be so
factory,
awesome.
and you would see how beautifully maintained it is and how OCD everything is in this place.
I love that. That's a good way to envision it with OCD. Yeah. All right. Well, we already shared with everybody how they can follow you and connect with you. So let's get to the final question of the day, which I love so much too. And that's what's inspiring you today?
What's inspiring me is
Mhm.
the same thing that's always inspired me. It's people.
Oh,
It's people. I could give you some answer that, that's not necessarily that I could
yeah.
get inspiration from, like as far as when it comes to what we sell and design and
Mhm.
things like this. But it's the people that inspire me, and hearing their stories. It's our
Yeah.
customers. It's that human to human interaction. I think in a world where technology is overrun in our daily lives and it's going to become more over the next, 10, 15, 20 years and it, way past, when I'll be in the workforce. I think that human to human connection is so important. Every day at Salamander, I try to go by and say hello to every person that works here. And I do that because I care. And I
Mhm.
do that because I want that human to human connection. I don't want to have to pull my phone out and have a conversation and, text in the middle of us doing a podcast or whatever we're doing, because I value and respect your time. And as importantly, I really like to have those conversations, and then to see how people are feeling and
Yeah.
what they're thinking and how, and a lot of times you were asking before advice you would give. I can't tell you how many times when you're talking to people and you're looking at what and you're saying hello to them and you have a little bit of conversation, they're telling you how you can potentially improve a process or something that may have happened that you would never have found out any other way.
Yeah.
So really, it's the people that inspire me.
That's beautiful. I love that answer because nothing gets done without the people, and everything I believe is built on a relationship.
Me too.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, this was a great conversation. I really just enjoyed hearing your story. You're such a fun guest.
Oh,
I think that everyone listening really learned a lot. So I just want to encourage everyone to save this show, to come back, really dig into what Scott was saying about core values, job descriptions, and due diligence, because it's really important, something that we all can always get better at. So don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss a notification when a new show drops, just like this one, as always. And a special thank you to everyone who listened today. But of course, Scott, special thank you to you. It was so fun. Thank you for being our guest.
Thanks, Heather. It was a lot of fun today.
Awesome. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.